move on to our homework for this
let's
week.
do it.
Our albums that we gave each other.
Mhm.
You gave me something called a band called Cryptic Vision, Moments
Mhm.
of Clarity. This was suggested to you by your old instructor, Matt Magashko.
Mhm.
You know, like, and on the board today, Billy Letcher was talking about Matt again. Matt was one of the best musicians ever to walk this earth, I think, who really
Yeah.
didn't get the recognition that he deserved. Rest in peace, Matt. He passed away last year, but he taught you when you were young,
He
and
taught me
just
everything
being
I
around
know.
the guy,
He was my teacher for over 10 years. He's
right? And he
like a second
recommended,
father for me.
yeah, he recommended this album to you, or this
Yeah.
band to you, this
Mhm.
Cryptic Vision, when you were looking for something that was like Kansas. And this is a band that they're still around.
Yeah, they're
They're a newer
relatively
band.
new.
Yeah, they're a newer band, so that's kind of cool. We talked a little bit about this. Didn't make the last episode, or those episode before, about bands that are progressive, like the old school, like classic rock progressive bands that are still doing it. Cryptic Vision was the top of your list, so you gave me Moments of Clarity. So this is what I think about it. Okay, you take a less heavy version of Dream Theater, you add in some Yes, you add in some Kansas, you mash it all up, and that's Cryptic Vision.
Yeah.
That's what they are.
That's a really good way to describe it.
It's good, solid stuff for the most part. I like the album. I'm gonna revisit it. Some of it felt lacking, and that's, I think, why they're not as huge
They're
as
not
they
as big
could.
as they could be.
Yeah,
They're
they're
not like
not Spock's beard.
or
Right.
Yeah, exactly.
Right, exactly. They're not Spock's beard.
Or even Kansas, who are still relevant now with their new album that just dropped this year.
Right. The couple mellow tracks, like in the middle of the album, kind of bored me.
Yeah,
they get
I
real
can understand
mellow,
that. I tend to skip over some of those too.
But when they did their heavier rock and stuff, I thought that was way better. There's great melodies. There's great. There's super great harmonies.
Yeah.
Vocally, I loved it. Like, it was. But yeah, man, it was like, we're gonna take our Kansas patch and put it right here, and we're gonna put our Yes patch over here, and
we're just gonna flex like this, and like, listen to what we like to do, like, yeah, I totally
get it. It was exactly what I thought it was gonna be. The standout tracks for me were Grand Design is where the album really starts to shine. I think it's like the third or fourth track, maybe, called the Grand Design, and it's. I should have known by the name, the Grand Design, it was going to be something like a Kansas song, and it was. The next one after that, I think, is Angeline. I think it's the next track. That was really good too. Shock Value I like, because it was kind of heavier.
Yeah, I like Shock Value a lot. It's probably my favorite.
As a really album. Like if that had if we had to pick a single, if I was an AOR guy and I was saying, okay, the single for an album is going to be Shock Value, because it sounded like a single. But it was a really cool song, and it was a little bit rockier, a little bit heavier. It's not super heavy. Nothing on the album is super heavy.
No, not really.
Like I said, it's like a less heavy. When Dream Theater does their less heavy stuff, that's kind of what it reminded me of. It's good stuff. I'd recommend it to anyone who likes prog rock. Anyone that likes progressive rock or progressive metal, I would definitely recommend Cryptic Vision, Moments of Clarity. It's not the best thing I've heard, but it's really, really good. It's solid. I mean, people that are watching, listening to this, they may enjoy it way more than I did, but it's something that I will return to. It'll be on my list. I know I'll throw it in again to jam to it again. It was, like I said, in the middle of it was a little boring. It just, like, there was an acoustic song on there that, to me, kind of didn't fit.
Yeah, I think it was more or less to tell the story, because the whole thing ties in as a concept album. So that's like, let's get all of our exposition of what happens in the plot.
Yeah.
In like a short little acoustic guitar thing. Yeah. I think that's why they did that. But again, musically, I don't think I agree with that so much either. I feel like they could have maybe worked that in a little bit more tactfully. But it does have its slower moments.
It didn't seem like it fit. Whatever it was, that was basically it was like one or two tracks that were kind of like, eh. But overall, man, it's a pretty solid release. I will probably learn to like those mellower tracks more as I give it another listen. I listened to it. I went through it like 2.5 times. I was listening to it earlier today, but then, I actually had to do work at work. So I had to start listening to it. Pay attention to.
That.
Yeah, imagine that. Being a video editor, I had to actually listen to some audio. So yeah, that was my homework for the week. Cryptic Vision. Now to you.
Yeah, so those of you that have been following know that I've been on a big pirate metal kick, and that's going to tie into the broader term folk metal. And there's a bunch of different types of folk metal, and it's something that I'm very interested in exploring, and I don't know much about it. So Jeff recommended to me Skyclad, who are one of the definitive folk metal bands.
They're one of the first, yeah.
They're one of the first, yeah. So I kind of went in with like real big high hopes.
Yeah.
I was a little disappointed. My assignment was the answer machine ? And I was expecting like because a band that always pops into my head when we think of folk metal is the band Corpiclani, which is a band I know next to nothing about, but I've gotten a lot of secondhand exposure to I don't know if it's one album or if it's one compilation of stuff. Our cousin EJ is a big Corpiclani fan, and he every morning junior year when we were in high school, he would listen to it in his car, and I would just hear it in his car. So like I didn't know what any of the tracks were called or what any of but like I remember specific moments, and I remember like this real super colorful stuff, lots of fiddle playing and accordion and trash cans and bongos and all this weird goofy stuff, and it's just awesome, and I loved it. And I was kind of going into Skyclad expecting that. And a lot of the stuff on the Skyclad album, The Answer Machine, was a little different. It had a lot of moments where it was more kind of like, it had some bits of like generic rock to it. I really, really didn't care much for the singer. Kind of gave me like a sort of like a punk singer vibe, kind of like a thrashy. Like it was more like a thrash metal band with violin playing here and there. That pretty much complemented some of the guitar riffs, and a lot of there were sections in each song that like, oh, this part's pretty cool, yeah, oh, that part's pretty neat, but like the first couple tracks on the album really didn't do much for me. And admittedly, honestly, I almost didn't finish it. I stopped halfway through because I was listening to it on one of my walks, and I just finished my little lap when I was about halfway through the album. I was like, all right, I'll put it on pause for now. I'll come back to it. And I almost thought like, I listened to enough of it to get an idea and I could talk about it. But I forced myself today. I was like, nah, I should really just give the whole thing a fair listen. So I started at the halfway mark and I worked my way. And as the second half progressed, it got a lot more interesting. And with like especially the last 3 or 4 tracks on that album, especially, I really, really liked. There was a lot of really good moments in it, and it was a lot more of that really colorful, fast-paced, like really folky kind of stuff that I was kind of looking for throughout the whole album. Really started to surface near the end of it. So I'm definitely gonna revisit the band. I don't know per se if I'm gonna do that album. I might kind of touch back and find the ones that I really liked and listen to those again. But I would much more be interested in checking out maybe a few other albums of theirs, because I get the feeling, because there's a lot of different output they have, so I'm getting the feeling that like a lot of the albums have different things to offer, and it might just be that's like their thrashy album and I don't like it, but they have maybe some more folky kind of stuff. Is it all kind of the same?
No. That's probably their most mellow album.
That's their most mellow.
Is the Answer Machine, because there's a lot of acoustic guitar in there too. There's a lot of acoustic guitar in there. There's a lot of violin, but there is heavy guitar in the background. Reason why I suggested that one, because there's a lot of things to unpack with this. Okay, Martin is not the best singer. Their singer vocalist Martin
is he like all of them? Because I really don't like him at all.
No, he's actually he hasn't been with the band for about 20 years. Okay. But he did pretty much all of their original classic material. He came from a thrash band called Sabbath. Not Sabbath, Sabbath. 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 Anyway, the reason why I suggested that album is because to me that one was the one I go back to the most. Okay. Because unfortunately with Skyclad, they have a lot of great songs, but they're kind of interspersed throughout these albums. Some of the albums have a lot of filler. So it's like I was thinking about suggesting Irrational Anthems to you, which is another one of my favorites. But I started listening to it the other day and I'm like, I don't know, because it's really heavy in parts, and then there's folk parts. They're a really strange band. Now, in 2020, they're still active. They have a different singer who sings more like a voice like you would normally. Has a
little more body to it, maybe.
Yeah, a little bit more standard, we'll say. And they're way more. I think they're more folky now. than they were. Their thrash kind of sensibilities are gone pretty much. They're more of a folk metal band now. What folk metal is now than they were back then. But they're
I
like,
probably like their newer stuff better then, because I'm like big on like Gaelic Storm and stuff like that. Things that are like really folky, you know, like the Bodhran and all the playing and bagpipes and all that kind of stuff. I like the colorful exotic instruments. It's a big thing that draws me to folk metal.
Yeah, I was gonna give you a compilation, you know, of all their hits too, but I'm thinking, you know what, that's the easy way out. Let me give them the Answering Machine, because the Answering Machine to me is probably their least thrashy of their original albums, their original singer. Some of them are real heavy. Prince of the Poverty Line is another album that's like extremely heavy. There's only like one or two like songs that I would consider folk metal on that one. It's a mixed bag with them, but they were like the originators, because they started back in the early 90s. They were one of the originators of folk metal. So I'm like, okay, this is probably the best thing to get you into what folk metal really is, because it's a wider genre than just Corpaclani.
Okay. Yeah, I even though like I'm gonna find lots of stuff that I'm super into and lots of stuff that I'm not super into. So, but I'm willing to check it all out. So I'm glad at least I listened to the whole album and got a good idea, especially because the last couple tracks really surprised me, because I was like, let me slog through this and finish it. But I ended up
I know you're not huge on lyrics, but that's where they really shine, is the way Martin writes his lyrics. They're usually more than one meaning to them. There are a lot of double entendres and like play on words and stuff, just like the Answer Machine ? You know, that's the name of the album. And it's always like kind of,
can tell that from some of the titles. Some of the titles were like, all right, this is kind of
they have an album called their album's called Folkymon. That's right, that was the album. There's like they're on the covers like Pikachu with like a violin and an iPad.
I will listen to that just because of that. I'm a huge Pokemon fan. So
it's not a bad album. Folkymon's not a bad album, but again, like I said, a lot of them are a mixed bag. You know, it's like there's some filler. I hate to say that.
There were definitely some filler songs on the Answer Machine, and I was like, all right, I think I might just skip this one. You know,
that may be the album that I know of that has the least amount, and I hope Martin doesn't watch this, because he is friends with me on Facebook.
Sorry, Martin. I love you, buddy.
I love your lyric
my
writing.
Tastes are pretty particular, you know. I'm a classically trained pianist, so there's certain styles of singing that just don't do it for me. So
yeah, and he did come from a thrash band, and that was like his strength is not his vocals. I do like appreciate though when he is able to sing with that raspy, thrashy voice, but still get some melody out of it. You know, almost kind of like our buddy Lemmy does. You know, when you're hearing Motorhead, you know, sometimes Lemmy does stuff with his voice, and I'm like, oh my God, there's some kind of like nice melody he's doing with this raspy sandpaper voice. You know, it's pretty impressive sometimes when he gets that out of that type of voice. But well, you know what? Next week I'm gonna give something that's it's more you. I'll say that.
All right, sounds good. Very cool. I'll have to come up with what to give you next. I haven't given it much thought yet, but I'll think about it tonight and over the weekend, and I'll shoot it your way.